G'day, welcome back. This is the next video in the series on World Chess Championship blunders. Now we move along to 2021, pretty modern, and the match between Carlsen and Nepomniachtchi. Anytime I'm going to say that, sorry Nepo. And this is Carlsen's last match. He defends successfully, but he retires after that. And Nepomniachtchi we will see in this match and the next match. I think it's these matches now onwards are a bit more interesting because we've had a couple of very dry matches between Carlsen and Karyakin, and then Carlsen and Caruana. Very high standard matches, very drawn games, both decided tiebreakers, and we've sort of moved a bit on from that in this match onwards. Okay, so let's have a quick look at what's going on here. World Chess Championship 2021. We have the candidates event. We'll just quickly touch on the candidates because it was quite an interesting candidates. It was broken in the middle by COVID with a bit of a kerfuffle or schmozzle, I don't know the word about that, because Rajabov had pulled out because COVID was ongoing, and then they only got halfway through the tournament and they gave Rajabov the spot in the next candidates because of that. So quite a strong list of players. You got Nepo, MVL, Giri, Caruana, Ding Liren, Grischuk, Alexienko and Wang Hao, and you can see the scores there. Two tail enders, and Nepomniachtchi won. Just going into a bit more detail. It's quite interesting this candidate. You can see it's Nepo was leading for most of the tournament. MVL was equal with him at the halfway point where they went away. And then I think the other interesting thing is Giri had this really strong streak in the second half of the tournament, very similar to the current tournament, which he just didn't quite catch up to Sindarov. Or Sindarov's score was absolutely stunning, but he's maybe Giri needs to learn to be a faster starter. And there was a key round 13 game. You can see that happens here where you back up. They described it here in round 13. Giri and MVL playing for win with black pieces, and Giri lost, and that was that decided the tournament. So although Nepo was a comfortable winner, there was a bit of tension in the tournament. And then the match itself, so it was fairly one-sided, 7.5, 3.5. So 1, 2, 3, 4 wins to 0. A bit of a payback for the junior championship by Carlsen. And let's go to the games we're going to look at 3 games today. Game 6, 9, 11, and 6 is difficult to call it a blunder, to be honest, but 9 and 11. So let's move to the. Okay, so you look here. Here's the match score. 6 is a blunder to Carlsen, according to my system, because there was I really had to tighten up the center pawn loss to call things a blunder. Anyway, you can see the chart down there for game 6, which goes along. I think Carlsen's blunders around. You can see Nepo over a number of moves lost the plot and lost the game. This is the famous longest game ever. We'll have a look in a second. And then Nepo's blunders in rounds 9 and 11 are the more relevant ones to think about. So let me game 6. I'm going to look at it around here. You remember this longest game ever in moves, and white is the only person who can win in this position. But basically black has enough counterplay and has been defending well, and we'll just sort of have a continue through the next few moves just to give a bit of a sense of what was going on in the game, and boards, edging pawns, checking. And then this is where I think the next move is regarded as the error. I'm not going to blunder, because what the computer's saying is you just stay behind the white king. Queen b1, queen c2, in particular the queen a1 as well. Just stay behind and you provide checks. Maybe b1's given as the strongest move. Let's put that in as an add variation. And then what you're looking at, checking from behind. But also you'll be keeping pressure on this pawn, and the king can't go too far because the knight might be hanging. A combination of things. Obviously, it's very difficult, very difficult to know this at the time. That's kind of sort of the approach. So if you ever get a position like this, bear that in mind. Like you do. However, what is generally regarded as queen e6 move is kind of thought to be the giving very considerable advantage to white. I don't want to say any more than that, because now what happens is that the white king is moving forwards and the pieces are kind of all there, and the king there's enough pieces to cover the checks, and the king moves forwards and supports the pawns, which is kind of what happens. You look at the next few moves, pawns advancing. And now it's too late. So, in fact, let's sort of continue on an engine line. I'll just add the line in, and let's follow it. Check, for instance. Check. Now the king's nicely covered, and white king got plenty of cover, and he'll be out for his pawn. So that's kind of the line to look at. Now, of course, there are many great videos on this. I always recommend the Daniel King ones on Power Play Chess for having a very detailed look at this game, because it was looked at in great depth by very strong grandmasters. So that was Nepo's first loss. You can see here, game 6, and then he then proceeded to lose 3 games, 2 of which are regarded as blunders. So let me just bring the chart up for the game 9. Okay, you can see where the blunder is. Move 27, actually. So let's have just look where this position came from. Nepo grabbed the pawn, Carlsen attacking the rook, and then now's the key position. So you look at it. This is famous as Nepo's bishop blunder. Everybody was shocked. You can see the blue moves are suggested moves. F3 attacking the knight. Knight retreats. The bishop retreats after that. Knight to C5 attacking the rook. Rook moves. Then bishop retreats. Or bishop back to F3. Right. And Nepo had a sort of a blind spot here. He played C5 because he thought he would get C6 in. But let's have a look what happened. Just blunders the piece. Carlsen gets in C6 first, drive the knight away, and now try and rescue the bishop. The bishop's lost. Although, maybe if White had been able to maintain 2 passed pawns, it would have been okay, but he's got a passed A pawn, but it's just not enough. Go through a few more moves. The pawn's not getting through, and Nepo resigned. So this was his infamous blunder of his bishop. Got trapped. Actually reminds me of Ding and Gukesh games, sort of a half-stranded bishop. Okay, so that really took the wind out of the sails now. Carlsen had won game 8, and now he's won game 9 on that blunder. Now he's up 3. Match is basically over at this stage, and we've got time for one more blunder, which is in game 11. So just let me quickly load that one up. Okay, here's the key position. It's quite a tense position, actually. We come about. D pawn takes D pawn. We move the rook to E4. Queen comes back, attacking the rook. Rook moves. And you can see that White should just recover the pawn, and the game goes on. However, what Nepo did was just a tactical oversight, it turns out to be a really bad blunder. Let's have a look at it. G3. So what maybe Nepo overlooked was that probably thought, the rook has to move. No, the rook doesn't have to move. We pick up the knight. Also, obviously, this check comes into play at some times, and if we take the rook back, which we're going to do, is this pawn drops with check. So that's not great, right? That is continuation, check. And just quickly, so King F1 was played. If you quickly go back to King H1, his engine continuation, check. King moves back to F1, no other choices, check. Take with the queen. Queen can be best, king doesn't look great. And now this is maybe a tactic which was missed. This rook lift is a killer, and it's like +6. So we're going to check there. It's probably going to pick up the queen for the rook. Be a winning advantage with queen and knight for 2 rooks and a very exposed king, and the queen will just picking up the pawns. So that's why in this position, King F1 was played. Once again, the Power Play Chess has video on this, so if you want to look at the game in more detail, I'm just focusing on this blunder, which was pretty poor tactical oversight. And best move here is to embarrass the king a little bit. And let's just have a look. So if the king tries to run away that way, that's obviously very bad. Remember, the whole one problem here is that this tactic is always on. This is obviously not going to work out well. So that's kind of sort of the lines which happen. The embarrassed king, so he didn't, H3 check, didn't move to E2, moved back to F1, and now, well, actually, so Carlsen actually stuffed up a little bit here. We'll go through the game continuation in a second. He should have just taken the pawn. We've got to take over the queen, because remember the tactic to skewer on the second rank. Rook D6. And I think we've transposed back to the original position we just looked at. A lot that can be done. Queen F1's given. Check. 2. Finish 2 check. F3. G3 check. Doesn't look good, does it? King E4. H5. Queen H1. Anyway, so there's Queen F5 checks coming. Blocks the retreat of the king back. So that's not good. Anyway, so Carlsen in this position, he missed. He takes F2 check. Knight F5. I mean, he's still totally winning. Push the pawn. Good defense. Knight up. Take. Check. Check. Now he's kind of just given up. He's still winning. Totally winning. But you can see he's given up a lot of his advantage here. He's 1 pawn up, but that passed H pawn is going to be the killer. Let's just go through the end of the game just to see how it works. keeps pressure on the pawns on the queen side. So its rook is tied down, and then we just push our H pawn, and then black has to cover. Check, check. Little cute move, but you can see obviously this is still winning, but he's made it quite difficult for himself. And then this is the final move. The pawn's going to drop. That pawn will drop. That pawn will probably drop, and that pawn will probably drop. And there'll be a lot of checks. And we'll have two pawns. So win for Carlsen. Now it's quite interesting because if you go way back, it's kind of like obviously maybe here where Nepo played G3. I mean, maybe the match was effectively over, and maybe Nepo was just trying to take his chances because this is kind of almost like he was giving up. But we've seen Nepo fight like in the candidates against Caruana, where he fought to the bitter end, even though he had no chance. So not like him to give up. But this was kind of a sort of a poor end of the match because then it's +4 and Carlsen retained his title. Anyway, so it just shows you that Nepo, obviously very strong play. He went through the candidates, but when he came up against Carlsen, just found a bit too much. But of course, Nepo will be back next time because he actually wins the next candidates as well. So just sort of shows how strong a player he was. And of course, next time it's a bit confusing because Carlsen steps down, so it ends up the first and second players, the other player being Ding, the people who ended up challenging for the title, which is kind of quite unusual. That's what we've got to look forward to. But anyway, that was the three blunders in inverted commas in this match. Hope you enjoyed that, and thank you very much for watching.